there on board one, I believe. That's Michael Betzold I have as a pairing. And he is waiting for Magnus to arrive. And there is no Magnus. Magnus is showing up fashionably late. Probably some fashionable jeans as well. But your clock is ticking already. There is no violation for arriving late. There's no zero tolerance rule.
Well, that's 3 minutes tolerance.
But 3 minutes is 3 minutes. You arrive 3 minutes late, you simply forfeit the game. So we should see Magnus, I would imagine, running in at any moment. Quite a stunning situation. And Grandmaster Michael Betzold of Germany, played him back in the day. He actually ruined one of my GM norms. Whoa. I'm not going to hate on him for this game, though. But here he goes. He's already made his move. And again, a watch for Magnus, a Magnus watch in alert as he is now coming in. Seems to be quite late. This is stunning. It's Blitz after all, Miro. How is he going to handle already being down a minute on the clock?
Well, I've seen him do this. I don't think on purpose, but he was late to
and there
one
he is.
Of his games.
He barely has his jacket on as he comes in. And let's see exactly what time he makes his first move, as he's even adjusting pieces with his time ticking down. He's under 2 minutes, folks. He's at 150, and finally he moved at 148. There is a 2-second increment per move, so he will have the opportunity to catch up with some time, but still, a minute and 10 seconds is a minute and 10 seconds in a 3-minute game.
Absolutely. Well, there've been, kind of an agreement between the players when you relate the position. You are a pawn up, I have 1 extra minute on the clock, position is equal. So in a way, you could say Magnus down a pawn.
Well, I think that's a lot because I watched Magnus yesterday play exhibition matches where he had 30 seconds against 3 minutes against his opponent, and he was fast. That hand speed is quick. And here Betzold has delayed as Magnus got up. It looked like he was a gentleman about it. Magnus took his jacket off, and Betzold decided to wait until Magnus sat back down. I don't know. A lot of players would say, too bad, buddy. You should have come in on time to get your jacket removed. But there they go. It looks like English formation, but with this early B3. And Magnus started with 148, but that 2-second increment, he hasn't actually lost basically any time on the clock to get this opening position.
Look, it's almost equal now. I mean, time on the clock, it's 30 seconds. It was more than a minute difference. Now it's, what, 30, 40 seconds. Okay.
Well, now, actually, on the last move, Magnus has given some pause and spent quite some time before playing that last move, C6, preparing potential expansion with the move D4, which actually, with D5, I mean, which actually at the moment is not playable because the E5 pawn is hanging. We will be catching up on the PGNs soon. We happen not to have them, unfortunately, but we have a pretty good view of the board as White has played the move Queen to C2 and now A5 expanding. I expect this knight on B1 will be coming out anytime soon, maybe like now.
Right, and it's remarkable how flexible both sides' positions are, right? So you move the pawns and then everything kind of behind the pawns, and no clash just yet. I mean, you do your thing, I do my thing, right? And then at some point, it has to change.
All right, both knights now leaping into the game. White has a very small lead in development as all the pieces are developed. Black is still trying to get that bishop from C8 into the game. And he moves the queen out the way. And we expect to see this bishop at some point soon. You see that bishop sitting on the back row. But instead, Magnus has actually just gone for an expansion in the center of the board with his pawn, attacking the knight. We see the knight under attack, and I believe we do have moves as of now. We'll see the PGN pop up in a second so we can get a split screen and show you on a 2D board as well. And there it is, you see on the right, this pawn is attacking the knight without finishing his development. This has actually frozen Betzold in his place. And look at the clock times. Magnus was down a minute and 12 seconds and is now ahead on the clock. This is just what the GOAT does, doing Magnus things as he has quickly actually gotten an advantage, and now he's even on the prowl, bringing his knight to G4, looking for attacking possibilities over on the king side. How does he just whip up magic like this so quickly?
Well, Magnus is absolutely amazing in Blitz, and I've tested it myself. So my record against Magnus is 1 game lost in Internet Blitz. That's it. You know, he is absolutely amazing.
I'm going to tell you, I played a 2-minute match, 6 games against Magnus. The score was pretty ugly. You can imagine the worst score. That's the score I got.
Wow.
Couldn't take a game off of this guy. It was casual chess, but still, I mean, he just makes everybody look bad. And now he has brought his knight, and now he's played G5 on the board. I mean, that is just bold. He's saying, I am trying to kick everything out on that side. I'm attacking you, and my plan is to eventually checkmate you. Very, very aggressive play on his part, I got to say. And we'll see whether or not this works out. But the big problem for Betzold, he only has 45 seconds on the clock. Magnus has a minute. Not that dramatic an edge, but Magnus is looking very cool right now.
Right, finally this bishop from c8 is getting developed. So bishop e6 was played.
And now the move c5, you see him there speeding up a little bit as he plays this move. That is a definite strike in the center, and Magnus has traded off the knight on f3. And I'm not sure Magnus saw this coming, because now this break has given black some opportunities. It is a pawn sack, but with that pawn sack and Magnus's king side being a little bit porous, this may come back to haunt him. I think at the moment, though, Magnus should be okay. Takes, bishop takes, bishop I expect on this move. And now the king had to capture back, or you would have lost the c5 pawn. Now, what does white really have? Actually, looking at it, it's not totally clear.
You know, it's a pawn down.
It does look like a straight pawn in this position. White has a little bit of initiative, though, annoying initiative, but he is a pawn down.
Yeah, so c5 hanging, but so does b3. So
and Magnus now down on the clock himself. We saw just for a moment there, they're both at 30 seconds, and Magnus hyper defense on his pawn on c5. Now you're never winning that pawn back, and you've got to wonder if white has sufficient compensation in the exposed king on g7, but I have my doubts. On b4, he decided just to blast open the game. Magnus was ready for this maneuver, however, and his rook is now attacking the queen on the second row. Queen check, fortunate, but a queen trade does not look good for white.
Yeah, you may win the pawn back. Say you are trading, you're winning the pawn back, and then he goes b5. That's
actually, yes, there you go, and b5 on the board. So white has definitely gotten his pawn back. That's important, but when you look at the upshot of it, the passed b pawn is the main problem here, and Magnus will try to milk that. And a break in the center with e4 we saw just happen. Magnus simply bypassed it with the move f4, and now e5, but ooh, two rooks on the 7th. That is never a pretty picture. And Magnus just dominant right now. Pawns, rooks, pass pawn everywhere. We can expect Magnus to just own this board, as he's now up a pawn and only 5 seconds left for Betzold. This is a disaster for white's position.
This is absolutely over. Bishop d5, and he captures another one, so stalling those 2 pawns around the king.
2 pawns, 2 passers. Bishop d3 with just 2 seconds left on his clock. This is just about over. You can smell mate in the air. Magnus drops his bishop back, and now something like rook h2 doesn't just win on the spot. What am I looking at here? G3 played, and then rook takes. He decided to sacrifice the exchange so he can have a pass pawn, but useless, as rook to c2 has now blocked that, and Magnus will just pick off that rambunctious pawn, and resignation is afoot. Magnus looking a little apologetic for showing up late, but definitely a smashing performance. Let's jump to board 3, where Hikaru Nakamura, I believe.
Hikaru has won his game.
Oh, he won